Representative Randolph, you're recognized in debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, let's discuss two things today. First of all, there's nothing in this bill that actually gives merit pay. But it will force our local school boards to choose between cutting classes, laying off staff and teachers, or raising property taxes. Second, this bill does nothing to actually address student performance and learning. So first, let's be clear. There's nothing in this bill that raises teacher pay. Instead, there are things in this bill that, by function of the bill, will most likely reduce the base pay of every teacher in this state. There's simply an inevitable outcome of the factors that we create today. Let us also be clear that because this legislature has shown so little regard for actually funding the education of our children, this bill will result in salary cuts across the board, with only those that eventually meet the unreviewed, potentially unexplainable rules put out by the unelected bureaucratic fourth branch of government, that is the State Board of Education, would they potentially see some type of increase in the future. Further, Florida's average teacher salary has fallen from number 28 in 2006 to number 47 in 2010. Now add in the proposals to tax their salaries for pension contributions and low benefits at retirement and rising health care cost shares, and our teachers have already fallen severely but far behind teachers in other states. It's amazing to me that the members of this chamber see no harm in paying those to whom they entrust the minds of their children a smaller wage than is paid to those to whom they entrust the plumbing care of their toilet. Until we pay teachers a livable wage, there's no need to talk about this bill. Now let's add in the 10% education cut proposed by Governor Rick Scott, or the 7.7% cut proposed by this chamber. Now let's add in the absolutely overwhelming unfunded mandate of creating end-of-course exams for each school district. In the Senate staff analysis for Senate Bill 6 of the 2010 legislative session, it was estimated that the development and administration of valid, defensible end-of-course exams for a course was $1.5 million. In my home county, Orange County alone, there are more than 500 different courses in our K-12 system. That would be a potential cost of $750 million if the cost is in line with the staff analysis. Race to the Top will not cover these expenses, and there is no additional monies appropriated for this mandate. This is the mother of all unfunded mandates. Now, we've heard that there have been requirements in place since 1999 to create these type of exams, but that's just not the case. If that's the case, that also applied to charter schools. So given the many members here that teach or represent charter schools, I'd like to hear how those end-of-year exams are coming along. I'd like to hear from those members whose children attend charter schools. How are they doing on those end-of-year exams? If there are end-of-year exams, they have been used as a simple assessment tool for the teachers, not as statistically defensible, reliable exams for determining teacher pay. So members, how do we propose that they do that without cutting teacher base salary or firing teachers? What kind of fuzzy math do we use to get there? Second, let's be clear. There is no performance pay in this bill. That's right. Instead, this bill leaves the State Board of Education with nearly unfettered discretion to determine learning gains, salary structures, and budget decisions, among other things. All without legislative oversight. It also says if and when there is money appropriated. And right now, this legislature has been far too busy for the last decade handing out more than $14 billion in tax cuts to corporate and special interests in funding education. That's the only time I can presume that a government body, this legislative body, willingly removes power from itself and transfers it to the unelected bureaucratic fourth branch of government, as Justice Scalia would call it, is when it knows that unpopular, unfair, and unexplainable events will take place. Make no mistake that those that vote for this bill today will not walk away with clean hands by arguing that it was the future decisions of the Board of Education that caused their problems. We have all been put on notice that we are fully accountable for whatever actions this unelected bureaucratic fourth branch of government imposes upon our education system. So members, before voting for this bill, ask yourself, how will learning gains be determined for students using end-of-course exams? How can you measure learning gains from Algebra 1 to Geometry, World History to American History, Chemistry to Physics, Spanish 2 to French 1? How will learning gains be measured when certain students enter a course with a level of knowledge of the content that ranges from knowing nothing to knowing the majority of the content? Finally, members, we constantly hear from the Florida Chamber about making Florida attractive to businesses. We're told how we have to make the business environment one that will make employers and employees want to move to Florida. Well, the same holds true for attracting teachers. In the last few years, Florida schools have produced about 6,000 new teachers every year, leaving another 10,000 to be attracted and recruited from other professions or out of the state. How are we supposed to do that when we already offer significantly lowered starting pay and benefits? We're now adding to that the inability to have any employment stability for people with professional degrees. And let's talk about effectiveness for a second. Let's try to do some simple math. A fifth grader will spend 180 hours in a class with one particular teacher. Take out the 1/3 of the time that the child will be sleeping. And that still means that one particular teacher will spend 3%, that's right, 3% of that child's life during that year trying to teach that child. And yet we are telling that teacher that in order to pay their mortgage, they will be held responsible for that child learning the material for that school year. Will the doctors in the house take responsibility right now for the 97% of activities that his patients engage in outside of this office? Will he refuse payment if his patient decides to eat hamburgers, smoke, and drink even though the doctor told him not to? It could be that some things, no matter how good of a doctor he is, are simply out of his control. And let's take lawyers. I have a client. I explain to them what's legal and illegal. When they walk out of my office, they're still free to do what they want, and I'm not held accountable for what the actions of my clients are. In fact, ironically, the only lawyers who get paid based on their performance are the only lawyers that this chamber constantly attacks every year. Yet we're telling the teachers that they are only as good as the random student that walks in their classroom door. Never mind, as the Seminole County Teacher of the Year wrote to me, their learning discrepancies, their unstable home lives, their prior learning experiences. Never mind the 30 days of school they miss. Never mind that the policies of this legislature has led to his parents holding down 3 jobs to make ends meet. Never mind that the policies of this legislature have that child coming into the classroom hungry. And let me digress for a second. You know, we talk about the great student learning gains that our students have made over the last decade because of the education reforms put in by this legislature. Yet at the same time, we talk about how apparently this state is rampant with bad teachers. Do you think that that occurred because you willed it from the comfy of your leather chair? It occurred because we have great teachers in this state that work hard every day to make that happen. Furthermore, performance pay is only available if the money's appropriated. So there's nothing in this bill that will lead to higher pay for great teachers. Nothing. And we need to stop misleading, as a kind word for what's happening, misleading parents that this is what this bill does. There is no doubt that great teachers should be rewarded. But placing so many arbitrary determinations that leave so little room for individual, real-world scenarios is not the way to go about it. And most importantly, we need to actually fund it. And this legislature would rather cut taxes for corporate special interests than to fund our children's futures. So remember, this is a bill that not only lacks merit, but it lacks pay. And I urge you to vote it down.
Representative